Good morning, Bro Lift 2. I'm just waiting for people to come into the room. It's awfully early. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Hello from Massachusetts. Okay, so I am live streaming in 2 different places. This is TikTok and this is YouTube. Good morning. Good morning. I got my coffee because I'm not 100% awake. The sun is just now starting to rise. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you got your coffee. I don't know how long we're going to be on live today. I don't think we're going to be on live that long. Hey, Raylo. Hey, Reno. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Maria. Well, typically I'm up this time because today would be in office day. So I'm typically up at this time heading into the office, but nobody's going into the office because tomorrow is a holiday. Everybody's working from home in my office today. So I'm up and I'm sipping coffee and we getting ready to talk about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the independent candidate, presidential candidate. Good morning, Austin, Texas. Good morning. We gotta troll. Let me block this person. It's too early in the morning for them. Good morning, good morning, good morning. He's gone. He's blocked. It is RF Kennedy's campaign is frightening because he will pull a lot of votes from Joe Biden. Hey, Uncle Dan. Good morning. Good morning. How you doing, Uncle Dan? And so the picture that you see on the screen over here is YouTube. Over here is TikTok. The picture you see on the screen is an old photo of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that is now circulating. It has gone viral on social media. I haven't seen anybody on TikTok or YouTube talking about it yet. Not to say that there isn't, but I haven't seen it yet. So, what this picture is, it's a picture of RF Kennedy Jr. The woman is unimportant. And, and the carcass, the barbecued carcass that they're holding and pretending to be chowing down on is allegedly a dog. And this picture, Robert F. Kennedy sent it through text message to a friend who was traveling to Korea and was basically telling the friend that he should, try barbecue dog or something along those lines. This is what I'm gathering from all of the chatter that's taking place out there on social media. And so you have a bunch of people, they're over here on TikTok trying to spin it and say it's a goat. Some say it's a goat, some say it's a pig. Well, in the article that we are getting ready to read, because Vanity Fair put out this expose article that includes what went down with this picture. And Vanity Fair reached out to a veterinarian, and a veterinarian did confirm that this is the carcass of a dog. And one of the factors that the veterinarian used to determine that this is a dog is the ribs. And there's some type of something going on with the ribs that this veterinarian can definitively say that this is a dog. And so we'll get into the specifics of this article. And I just want to make it known to all of the trolls over here in TikTok. I don't listen to you because I think you're stupid. I think you're intellectually inept. There is no way that I'm going to listen to trolls over the education and experience of people who would know if this is a dog or a goat. Plus, all of you trolls, you're intellectually dishonest. I'm tired. I'm having a cup of coffee. It's early. Yeah, I don't feel like dealing with you trolls. I will be ignoring you trolls. A veterinarian. So for all of you, I'm not seeing it over here on YouTube. I am seeing it over here on TikTok. You see the trolls down in the chat saying this is a goat or this is a pig. They're lying to you. They're being intellectually dishonest. I doubt that they even read the article. Based on what the vet said, as far as an identifying marker that this is a dog, I will believe the vet over a no name, no face troll on TikTok. That is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Rosanna. Yes, SW1 over on YouTube. This article gets into the discussion of the brain worm that he had that chewed away on part of his brain. And I want you all to know that, yeah, you can find this article here on, you can Google Vanity Fair RFK Jr. and you will find the article. The title of the article is RFK Jr.'s family doesn't want him to run. Even they may not know his darkest secrets. So we're going to get into this article. It's quite lengthy, but we're going to read the article in its entirety because we don't just read headlines. We don't just look at photographs and come to a determination based on the photograph and what trolls are tweeting out there on social media. But the picture of the man chowing down on this barbecued carcass is presidential candidate, independent presidential candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And the carcass is a dog. Yes. Oh, Justica Hayes. She just pointed out over here on YouTube, smart cookie. She just pointed out the identifying marker that confirms that this is a dog. That this is a dog. Now I will say, and I'll do a video on this later. I'm not going to do all of that in this live, but I will say Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has come out to respond to these claims. And he said it was a goat. He said it was a goat as he stumbled over his words. And I'm sure that's where all of these trolls are getting that from. Yeah, like we expect RF Kennedy Jr., very problematic RF Kennedy Jr., to come out and admit that he was chowing down on a goat. Yeah, I forgot to change the caption. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. So Justica say, I know my animals. She has mentioned the identifying mark or the confirmation as to why this is a dog. This is why you can't listen to trolls. You listen to professionals in the field. Okay? Now y'all gonna have to deal with the trolls over here on TikTok because I doubt that my moderators are up and at them this early. Is it 7? Oh, it's just after 7. Okay, so let's get it read. Let's get into reading this article. Again, you can find the article in Vanity Fair. And the title of the article is RF Kennedy Jr.'s family doesn't want him to run. Even they may not know his darkest secrets. And so this article has some of his darkest secrets, some which we probably already know. We're going to read it in its entirety. So let's go. 20 years ago, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. appeared in an HBO documentary about the dangers of a nuclear plant on the Hudson River, Indian Point, imagining the unimaginable. It was directed by his sister, Rory Kennedy. Pits the crusading Kennedys pictured flying in a helicopter over the nuclear facility against Entergy, the power company. The film argued that the surrounding environment would be made uninhabitable if the plant came under terrorist attack. This was necessarily a high-stakes confrontation in anticipation. Rory warned her production team they had a potential liability. Her brother, a prominent and successful environmental lawyer known for suing polluters, could be fast and loose with the facts. In other words, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an environmental lawyer, is a liar. Quote, he can say some crazy shit, end quote, she told them. According to a person involved in the film, Kennedy's interviews had to be thoroughly fact-checked, quote, even though he might come across an expert, end quote. So in other words, he doesn't listen to the experts. Typical white man, entitled, white privilege, they know everything. She said, quote, that's who he is, end quote. Sure enough, the film had already been edited when producers discovered that Kennedy's interviews were littered with inflated and inaccurate claims, rendering portions of the film unstable. It was like, holy shit, says another source familiar with the events. Quote, we have to get the audio and cut certain things out. We can't really say this. You can be sued, end quote. The experience of having to tear the film apart and re-edit it was deeply frustrating for Rory. Rory is his sister, especially because HBO had wanted more Bobby, not less. When her brother gave a speech at the film's premiere, wild audience members asked Rory why she hadn't included some of his more dramatic points in her film. She couldn't tell them it was because they were untrue. Long before he entered the 2024 race with a wagon train of conspiracy theories, the wider Kennedy family was intimately familiar with RFK Jr.'s problematic personality, the outsized confidence masquerading as expertise, the savior complex. Now, we've talked a lot about the white savior complex and how detrimental it is to Black people and people of color. That, and they use the term savior complex, and in parentheses it says, as one of the family members called it. That drives him to take up quixotic causes and cast himself as a lone hero against established powers, and above all, as one old friend calls it, his pathological need for attention. A few months ago, I began talking to Kennedy family members and close friends, some on the record, others on background, to get insights into the man they know well and to ask some pointed questions rather than merely rubber stamping Joe Biden's already fatally faltering campaign. Shouldn't you be telling voters that you know about your brother and cousin whose candidacy threatens to swing the presidential election to Donald Trump and upend American history forever? With the future of the country riding on the narrowest of polling margins, shouldn't you be describing in fine detail the acute dangers of the person you know so well before your own family's tragedy becomes the nation's? To describe the family as reluctant is an understatement. So they care more about their reputation than democracy, basically. Behind the scenes, his siblings, especially brothers Max, Chris, and Joseph II, are furious over his candidacy. Sisters Carrie and Rory are heartbroken, but the desire to preserve their relationship with their brother, combined with the long-standing Kennedy blood oath to protect the family's reputation, as someone close to the family described their loyalty, has prevented them from pulling back the curtain on RFK Jr. They know, instead, choosing to focus on policy differences. The Kennedy campaign did not respond to detailed questions from Vanity Fair. After initially denouncing his candidacy last year, most of the 105 Kennedy relatives, including Bobby's 8 siblings, the largest branch of the family, had hoped his campaign would collapse under the weight of his many bizarre claims and alliances with anti-vax cranks and Trump world figures like Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson. Well, Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson made him relevant because they pretty much validated his campaign. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They were talking about it, Trump RFK ticket at one point. So they validated Steve Bannon. They validated his crazy. Instead, the family has played defense, going public only when Kennedy's statements went far out of bounds. They had no choice when he suggested COVID was ethnically targeted. And when he said ethnically targeted, it was my community, it was the Jewish community that he claimed COVID was ethnically targeting to spare Jewish and, well, let me back up. Let me back up. He publicly talked about the COVID would spare Jewish and Asian people. But the rumors behind the scenes, he was talking about how um, COVID was targeting Black people and people of color, which that part is true. Black people and people of color suffered a great deal with COVID. um, where was I? Jewish people. Or his claim that anti-vaxxers suffered worse oppression than Anne Frank. Remember when they were coming out with the yellow star? They were going to wear the yellow star because they were unvaccinated. They wanted to be oppressed so badly. Yeah, that's what they're talking about. Or when he claimed there was a mysterious alternative shooter in the death of his father in 1968, going so far as to interview Saran B. Saran in prison and proclaim him innocent, or that the CIA was possibly involved in the assassination, claims that caused deep pain for his siblings. I didn't know. Now, I knew about these conspiracy theories, but I didn't know he was a part of spreading these conspiracy theories, and he went this far in spreading these conspiracy theories. Their private efforts to get Bobby to drop out or at least wait until 2028 to run have also come to naught. I've spoken to Bobby about this race, about what's at stake, about the importance of supporting Joe Biden, of the impact of the Trump presidency on our country and on the world. This is Carrie Kennedy, one of the sisters, who leads the nonprofit Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights and is disciplined in how she speaks of her brother. And she tells the reporter, and I was clearly unpersuasive. Asked to share insight into her brother's motives and psychology, she begs off. Well, you need to have a degree, which I don't have. So they know he's dangerous. They know he's problematic. They know he's mentally unfit. But yeah, they're not going to come out publicly and list it A, B, C, D, and E. They're not going to do that. Yeah, they'll protect the family name over democracy. Loyalty has always been the highest virtue in a family that has lived for decades under the public microscope. Stories of Ethel Kennedy keeping ancient friends in her social orbit for favors performed decades earlier are legend. Now, that's one I hadn't heard. Speaking out is verboten, but the genteel approach has made it easy for RFK Jr. to dismiss them, which basically he has. He's dismissed this. He's dismissed this picture to suggest there is a sizable faction of supporters in their ranks, though in truth, only one other cousin, Anthony Shriver, has publicly backed him. When 50 Kennedy family members, including the branch known as Generation 3 or G3, appeared on the lawn of the White House with Joe Biden on St. Patrick's Day, I know we have all seen that picture. I remember seeing that picture because we were like, whoa. It was supposed to be a powerful show of solidarity, but the event was a compromise among people who didn't necessarily agree about what to do. A month later, a public event in Philadelphia generated a series of choreographed videos of the cousins voicing support for Biden, but it had no discernible effect on RFK's polling numbers, even as the cousins to provide their strategy was working. clung to a single poll showing Kennedy would take more votes from Trump than Biden. Since then, Kennedy has managed to get his name on the ballot in the swing state of Michigan and is spending millions in other states to do the same. And what is happening, because we know these third-party candidates, it's hard for them to get on the ballot. And what a lot of people have been trying to tell these people who are claiming that they are going to vote for RFK Jr., a lot of times, some of these states won't even count a third party vote. And so now they're saying if he's not on the ballot, they'll write it in. Well, it's the same thing with with write-ins. A lot of these states don't count write-in votes. So if you're doing that, you're essentially just throwing your vote in the trash. It's not even going to be counted. It's not even going to be counted. It's not even going to be counted to make a difference in any kind of way in this election. This is what we mean by voting third party. You're just throwing away your vote. You're just throwing away your vote. You'll show up as the 10% of votes that went to RF Kennedy Jr. That's it. It has no other meaning, none whatsoever. You're throwing away the vote. So if you are doing a no vote, then you are voting for Donald Trump. And that's why he's in the race. That's why MAGA supports him. That's why Steve Bannon supports him. That's why Tucker Carlson and all of them support him, because they understand if people on our side vote for him, then yeah, they understand that it's a throwaway vote, that it's not going to count. So yeah, they're cheering you on. They want you to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. They want you to throw your vote away. Where am I? Where am I? A few Kennedy cousins, did I read? A few Kennedy cousins have pushed for a more aggressive approach, with one mockingly referring to White House photo op as the leprechaun event. Behind the scenes, there is a growing panic that the family must do more to prevent their rogue cousin from causing a political disaster, especially in the wake of the Biden's debate performance. And a lot of people look at these cousins, because I remember seeing the one cousin come out on TikTok, but a lot of people view the cousins coming out and denouncing RF Kennedy Jr. They think they're just denouncing him because he's challenging Joe Biden. He's a Democrat challenging another Democrat. No, that's not the case at all. They know the man is unfit. As one, and they won't. What's causing all of the confusion? If the brothers and the sisters would come out and just spell it out, hey, we know this, we know this, we know this, he is unfit, then there wouldn't be any confusion. But because the sisters aren't saying, and the sisters and the brothers aren't saying anything, it's the extended family, the cousins, who are trying to get the word out. They don't, yeah. The sisters and the brothers would have more impact, and they are the ones that are keeping quiet. As one family intimate, Andy Karsh, who has known Kennedy since 1972, has put it directly, if Trump is elected, quote, you'll go down as one of the great villains in American history, end quote. And you see, the ones that are really talking, there's this still sense of loyalty over protecting the family than protecting democracy. Quote, Bobby risked damaging the legacies of both his father and uncle at a time when those values and ideals could not be any more important, end quote. I'm sorry, when it comes to democracy, I don't care about your legacy. And yeah. The Portrait family members paint of Bobby is of a man of exceptional charm. I'm sorry, I don't see the charm. Soon as he starts talking, there's no charm there for me. Have you guys heard him speak? Have you heard him speak? There's no charm there. The portrait family members paint of Bobby is of a man of exceptional charm, wit, brains, and generosity, who has championed important environmental causes, but whose worst traits, an unnerving ease with blending fact and fiction, a powerful ability to deny the collateral damage of his own destructive actions, have engulfed his better angle. The source of these pathologies, these lies they observe, are found in his long and troubling biography, a life story marked by personal trauma and addiction to drugs, sex, and perhaps most perniciously of all, public adulation. Quote, you can't reason with addiction, end quote. Stephen Kennedy Smith, a cousin of Kennedy's, whose father ran the elder Bobby Kennedy's 1968 presidential campaign, quote, and what we know about addiction is it leads to bad judgment, extremely bad judgment, end quote. Last year, Robert Kennedy Jr. texted a photograph to a friend. In the photo, RFK Jr., this is the photo, you guys, this is the photo. Last year, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. texted a photo to a friend. In the photo, RFK Jr. was posing alongside an unidentified woman with the barbecued remains of what appeared to be a dog. Kennedy told the person who was traveling to Asia that he might enjoy a restaurant in Korea that served dog on the menu. We all know this is incredibly racist, right? We all know this is racist, right? We all know this is racist, right? Right? I don't have to break that down because I don't feel like it. Okay, I just happened to see Stella. Let me block Stella. She's not intellectually sound to be a part of this conversation. Let's see who else. See, y'all fall for it every time. Frank James says, nope, that's not racist. That tells me he's not intellectually capable of being a part of this conversation. Let me see who else. Let's see. Okay, I see another one. Let me block them. Y'all fall for it every time because you just feel that you have to be a part of Black spaces, a part of conversations. Oh, block me? No problem. I got you. I got you. I got you. I aim to please when it comes to blocking. Hey, Mr. Trade Facts, how you doing? How you doing? All right. Okay, so let's keep moving. So we all understand that this is a racist statement. So he's telling a friend that's going over to Asia, he's telling the friend to check out a Korean restaurant, and on the menu is dog. Okay. The photo was taken in 2010. According to the digital files metadata, the same year he was diagnosed with a dead tapeworm in his brain. Mm-hmm. He came out and told us that. A lot of people like to denounce this. He came out and told us that. Y'all can Google it. Yeah. He was diagnosed with having a dead tapeworm in his brain, and the tapeworm had been chewing. So yeah, when we say missing brain cells, R.F. Kennedy Jr. Yeah, when you look that up in the dictionary, there's a picture of RFK. Exactly, Michelle. He told us this. He told us he was diagnosed with having a tapeworm in his brain. It had died, and it had eaten part of his brain. These are the people that y'all, when y'all talking about, I'm voting for RFK Jr., this is who you're voting for. A man who's missing part of his brain because a tapeworm had been eating on it and probably ate so much it died. It died in his brain. It died in his brain. Okay? This is when y'all say y'all voting for RFK, this is who y'all voting for. Y'all will vote for anybody but the one with the common sense, the one with the morals, the one that's trying to help the American people. Y'all will vote for anybody but the sane individual. Okay. The same year, he was diagnosed with a dead tapeworm in his brain. Quote, a veterinarian who examined the photograph says the carcass is a canine, pointing, here's the identifying mark, pointing to the 13 pairs of ribs, which include the telltale floating rib found only in dogs. So there is an identifying marker in this carcass, in this photo, that cannot be denied, that proves this is a dog, not a goat, not a pig, a dog. Thank y'all for the gifts. Where are my YouTube people? And this is the photo he jokingly sent to a friend who was traveling to Asia. Now, he was having a racist moment. He was sharing a racist joke with his friend. He didn't expect this to come back years later, decades later. He didn't expect this to come back. Listen up, democracy, baby. I just want you to imagine. This is a dog in this picture. This is a dog. No ifs, ands, or buts. There's an indisputable, unidentifying mark that proves this is a dog. I want you to imagine everybody was in an uproar and disgusted with Kristi Noem. I want you to imagine. I don't know if this is a family dog. I don't know if this was a stray dog, but this is a dog. So they took this dog. As I look at my little whiskey bear, they took this dog. They killed it. They skinned it. They removed all of the innards. Sorry, whiskey, cover your ears. Mommy would never. They removed all of the innards. They cleaned it up. And y'all know, they don't clean meat like we clean meat. Hold on, I see a racist down in the chat over here. Let me block them. They cleaned it up the way that they clean up meat. They ain't put no seasoning on it, nothing. And they put it on the grill. They put it on the grill. And you cannot tell me, I can't prove it, because, you know, we don't see him actually chowing into the meat. But they skewered this dog. They did all of that and didn't eat it. Sam, be good over here cackling. You know they don't see nothing. They don't season nothing. Hey, Bougie Barbie. Marnie is asking why. Marnie, I don't know. They do inappropriate, evil shit because they think it's funny. I don't know. I don't know why they did it. They thought it would be a good joke. They thought, yeah, at the barbecue, let's all try barbecue dog. Hey, Tracy. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for everybody asking. In the photo, It's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I don't know who the woman is. She's really a non-factor in this. I don't know who the woman is. The woman is a non-factor. I don't know who she is. She's not even identified. That's why they kind of like, hid her identity. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., presidential candidate, for all of the nut jobs that are down in my comment section talking about they're going to vote for RFK. This is who you're voting for. A man that found a dog. I don't know if it's a family dog. I don't know if it's a stray dog. A dog. It has been confirmed by the expert that this is a dog. They found him. They murdered the dog. They shaved down the dog. I don't know if they skinned the dog. They removed all of the innards, cleaned them up the way they clean up meat, and they put it on the grill. They put them on the grill. Hey, political sis. Yes, girl. Yes. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This is what he did. He sent this photo to a friend. Hold on, let me get back to the article. Back in 2010, he sent this photo to a friend. I'm not saying that's when the photo was taken, but back in 2010, he sent this photo to a friend who was traveling to Asia. And he told that friend there is a restaurant in Korea that serves up dog. And the way that this has been confirmed that it's a dog is that the person who wrote this article teamed up with a veterinarian who examined the photograph and confirmed that it is a dog. The identifying marker is the carcass has 13 pairs of ribs, which includes the floating rib found only in dogs. Are we ready to move past this? Because there's a whole lot more article to go. There's a whole lot more article to go. But the reason why this is important is because this photo is going viral. I first saw the photo over on Joyanne Reed's Instagram. And so I got down in the comment section and people are saying that it's a goat. Stop lying. It's a goat. It's a pig. And so I came across one post and said a vet confirmed that it's a dog in the Vanity Fair article. So, I went traipsing on over to the Google machine and I found the article. So when you see all of the nut jobs out there trying to dispute this, you can come back and say, no, a veterinarian, a vet, an expert in his field has confirmed that this is a dog because it has 13 ribs, which includes the identifying mark of a floating rib found only in dogs. That is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Now, where they're getting it's a goat, it's a pig, because I believe Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to come out and say, that's not true. It's just political fodder. They're lying. Of course, he's going to come out and say that. But yeah, I don't believe shit Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has said. When we came into this article, they set the ground. They set it by telling you he's a liar. They've already told us. They have set it in stone at the beginning of the article. He is a liar. He is a liar, right? Isn't that what they said at the beginning of the article? He is a liar. So I don't believe nothing Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says. I've already seen him spew so many different conspiracy theories. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Okay, so we ready to move on from the carcass? The picture's staying up though. Thank you, political sis. The picture's staying up. Y'all need, yeah, yeah. Like one of the races that I just blocked not too long ago that said, well, Africans eat dog. What about the Africans? What? That's racist. That's racist. That's called a racist stereotype. Created by racist white people who don't understand different cultures. And so you denigrate that culture and you make up harmful racist stereotypes. Okay, so we moving on. All right, so that's the dog incident. The picture's intent seems to have been comedic. That's what I said. He thought it was funny. It was just a joke. No one should take it seriously, even though it's harmful to a whole group of people. Kennedy and his companion for the recipient, it was disturbing evidence of Kennedy's poor judgment and thoughtlessness, simultaneously mocking Korean culture, reveling in animal cruelty, and needlessly risking, his reputation and that of his family. When Kennedy was married to his second wife, Mary Richardson, he was known to text other damning images to friends as well of nude women. Now, I don't know if he knew these women or if he was intimate with these women or, these are just naked pictures he saw on some porn site. But he just would send nude photos of women to his friends, according to Vanity Fair in this article. I'm sure they have their sources. Those friends assumed Kennedy himself had taken the pictures, but they didn't know whether the subjects had consented to having their genitalia photographed, let alone shared with other people. When one friend lost his phone, he panicked that somebody might discover the images because Robert F. Kennedy is sending these naked women to him. Theories about Kennedy's reckless behavior abound. Long before it was reported, members of the family knew about the brain worm, which in court testimonies, Kennedy conjectured he picked up from food he ate in South Asia. So he said he got the worm from the different foods that he ate while in South Asia. More racist shit. He said the tapeworm consumed a portion of his brain. That's right. It was also a part of some testimony he had to give. I think was it a divorce? I'm sure they'll tell us. Let's keep going. He said the tapeworm consumed a portion of his brain and led to protracted brain fog. So let me tell you something. Brain fog is serious. Going through menopause, I experience it from time to time. I'm not running for president, though. I'm not running for president. So, yeah, the worm ate part of his brain. And as a result, one of his symptoms is brain fog. Okay? He said this. But more often, his family points to Kennedy's 14 years of a heroin user. Did y'all know he was a heroin user? I knew he had dibbled and dabbled in drugs. I didn't know it was this level for this long. I'm on Vanity Fair. I'm on Vanity Fair. You can find this article in Vanity Fair, which began when Kennedy was 15. So he started this heroin use when he was 15 years old, and it didn't end until he was 29 years old. Kennedy has made his history of addiction part of his campaign narrative, arguing that he is more equipped to fix America's addiction problem. So he admits to this. So all of you are saying I'm lying and yeah, he admits to this. I think it's in his biography that he wrote. Go pick that book up. But we know you're not going to read. We know you're not going to read. It's in his biography. And he admits to it because he uses it thinking that it makes him more relatable. Critics in his family feel otherwise. One Kennedy has circulated a report from the National Institute of Health on the impact of long-term heroin abuse, which surmises that the damage can alter the physiology of the brain, creating long-term imbalances in neuronal and hormonal systems that are not easily reversed, and which may affect decision-making abilities and the ability to regulate behavior and responses to stressful situations, which makes it all the more plausible that he sent that photograph knowing it was a dog. He thought it was funny, thought it was a joke. At Harvard in the mid-1970s, Kennedy was regularly injecting speedballs, a mixture of heroin and cocaine, and became a Pied Piper to friends and family, regular shooting up with his troubled brother David Kennedy, according to multiple friends from that era. Addiction shadowed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his entourage, including his best friend Chris Bartle, through college and law school, and into his early professional life working in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. On one level, Kennedy's substance abuse was comprehensible. He had seen his own father murdered on the public stage, a traumatic event that altered history, haunted his family, and deepened the weight of expectation on young Bobby, who was at the time 14. Of all Bobby Sr.'s children, the namesake son was considered the most promising dynastic heir. Square-jawed and twinkly-eyed, he looked and sounded the most like his father, with the charisma and public profile to take up the mantle if he chose. His college roommate, Peter Kaplan, the acclaimed editor of the New York Observer, who died in 2013, once noted Bobby's almost frightening facility with language. By birthright and training, Kennedy was presidential timber, with family friends like Robert Coles, a psychiatrist and professor at Harvard, and Lem Billings, a close friend of John F. Kennedy's, expending considerable effort trying to mentor and tutor him after his father's death. Jack Kennedy was lucky, Billings once said. He didn't have a lot of Kennedys getting there before him. Everywhere a boy like Bobby looks, there are footprints, all of them deeper than his own. Many tried and failed to get him off of heroin. Instead of guiding him to greater glory, Billings followed Bobby into heroin addiction. Meantime, Kennedy looked for heroes outside the family bubble, befriending Roger Ailes, the late Fox News founder, who at the time was an independent TV producer and advisor to Richard Nixon. In 1972, when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was 18, Ailes documentary in which Kennedy appeared shirtless and running from a rhinoceros. Family lore had it that Kennedy, while attending Harvard, once leapt the gap between two six-story buildings. So we see that a lot in movies. I've never seen it in person. People in New York, they go up to the rooftops and they jump buildings. They jump from one building to the next. This is what he was doing. Six-story buildings. He kept an owl in his house and carried a live snake around campus. Because of the drug taking and risky behavior, Bobby was often at odds with his mother, Ethel, who regularly threw him out of the house. Jackie Kennedy Onassis forbade her own children, John and Caroline, from fraternizing with him and his brothers. Like all the rest of us, Bobby grew up feeling that being a Kennedy, you could do virtually anything you wanted. This is Kennedy's cousin, Chris Lawford, told authors of The Kennedys: An American Dream, which is a book from 1984. It was good because you got away with things other people wouldn't dream of. It was bad because it destroyed your sense of what was worth doing. One of the authors could attest to that. David Horowitz remembers Bobby being so cavalier that he cut lines of cocaine for his brother, Michael Kennedy, and allowed him to snort a line in front of the writer. And only then did he introduce Horowitz as a reporter. So you set your brother up. You cut the drug. You sat it in front of him. You encouraged him to sniff it. He sniffed it. Then you tell him that he's doing all of this in front of a writer. Woo, Lord. And the writer says he also recalls that Kennedy asked him for a ride to Harlem to score drugs because, yeah, they'll come down to our neighborhoods to get the drugs, and then they'll go back to their neighborhoods and denigrate and talk bad about Black people and our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. In 1983, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., by then an assistant DA in the office of Manhattan District Attorney Robert Malganow, was discovered overdosing in the bathroom of an airplane. When an excerpt of Kennedy's book was published in Playboy magazine in 1984, the family turned on David Kennedy for airing the family's addiction secrets, and he stayed in a separate hotel during a family gathering in Palm Beach. Bobby David had told the book's authors was our last illusion. The next day, David died of an overdose at the age of 28. After Kennedy was arrested for possession of heroin, so all of you people that are saying that I'm lying, well, he was arrested. His cousin, Michael Skakel, also a recovering addict, supported him through recovery, which Kennedy said brought them close together. He would say he knew Skakel as well as one person can know another. Skakel later became the chief suspect in the 1975 murder of 15-year-old Martha Moxley in Greenwich, Connecticut. You can watch a documentary about the investigation and that murder. I believe it's on Netflix. There's a whole documentary about it. It's pretty good, actually. Having confessed to private investigators in the mid-1990s that on the night of the murder, he had climbed a tree near Moxley's bedroom window and self-pleasured himself. The M word. She was found the next day beaten and stabbed to death with a broken golf club, though he was not initially a suspect. Skakel had also intimated to board school friends that he had committed the murder. So he admitted it to other friends. Good morning, Whiskey. Get in your bed. I don't know. By the late 90s, Kennedy had found his calling as an environmental lawyer, running the nonprofit River Keeper, starting an environmental law firm and leading the charge against corporate polluters, pressuring General Electric to spend $1.7 billion to clean up PCBs the company had dumped into the Hudson River. He regularly attended AA meetings because he's in recovery, a model of recovery and renewed purpose. The other Kennedy men of his generation, however, were busy blowing up the family's legacy. Cousin William Kennedy Smith was tried for and acquitted of a grape in a highly publicized 1991 trial. Brother Michael Kennedy's relationship with an underage babysitter was exposed before he died in a skiing accident in Aspen in 1997. Older brother Joseph bowed out of a race for governor of Massachusetts after his ex-wife wrote a damaging tell-all book in 1997, and then cousin John F. Kennedy Jr., who was considered the quintessential Kennedy of his generation, died in a plane crash off of Martha's Vineyard in 1999, which Greenwich authorities reopened the Moxley murder case in 1998 and later charged Skakel. The Kennedy family publicly distanced themselves from Skakel, which had previously worked as a driver for the cousin Michael Kennedy, then running his brother Joseph Kennedy's power company, Citizens Energy. While Joseph ran for governor of Massachusetts, people believed an angry Skakel leaked the story of Michael Kennedy and the babysitter to the Boston Globe, which blew up Michael Kennedy's career and marriage. Skakel's lawyer did not respond to Vanity Fair's questions for this story. The same year, Skakel circulated a book proposal to New York publishers for a memoir titled Dead Man Talking, A Kennedy Cousin Comes Clean, which promised to lay bare the devious workings of a propaganda machine that works night and day to hide the sordid truth behind a scrim of patriotic idealism, hero worship. The Kennedy family, he claimed, had accused him of trying to extort money from them. Skakel painted a portrait of Bobby and his brothers as rutting satires and alleged that Michael Kennedy had a three-way tryst with his secretary and his brother Bobby's wife. When Skakel went on trial for murder in 2002, RFK blamed Vanity Fair columnist Dominique Doon for helping reopen the Moxley case by publishing a thinly veiled fictional account of the murder in 1993 called A Season in Purgatory, which seemed to implicate a Skakel family member. Around the same time, Skakel's father hired a private investigator. Their report, later acquired by Doon, cast suspicion on Michael Skakel. Doon and Kennedy engaged in a heated public feud over the facts of the case, trading volleys and published articles, including Kennedy's 14,000-word defense of Skakel in the Atlantic magazine. In an interview at the time, Kennedy accused Doon of twisting the facts and using suggestive language to make his arguments more credible. Quote, he's very clever about the way he does it. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in his defense of Skakel. He's very clever about the way he does it. If you look at how he couches his accusations, it's always somebody told me this. An anonymous source said this. So he's not saying it's true, but the average reader misses that nuance. For some reason, the voice of his pathetic creature has been amplified by the willingness of talk show hosts to allow him on to spout his stuff, and by publishers who publish stuff without fact checking. Now, remember, at the beginning of the article, when we started this article, the family talked about how much he lies. Remember, they were doing that documentary, and Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy was a part of it, and they had to cut and re-edit and take this out and take that out because he lied so much. Yeah, this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Bobby was the only Kennedy to defend Skakel, showing up twice to the Connecticut courtroom. Theories abound about why Kennedy felt compelled to defend Skakel, including speculation that Skakel was blackmailing him. According to one of Kennedy's diaries obtained by the New York Post, he thought that his cousin was delusional and paranoid, even as he publicly maintained that Skakel was innocent of the murder. For his part, Doon drew a pointed conclusion from Kennedy's defense. If you were to take Kennedy's word that he knows his cousin as much as any human being alive, and you believe Skakel murdered a girl at 15, the concluding logic isn't so great for Bobby. Skakel had served 11 years, of a 20-year sentence when, after years of appeal arguing that his lawyer had botched the defense, the conviction was vacated and Skakel was released pending a retrial. In 2016, Kennedy published a book defending Skakel called Framed. why Michael Skakel spent over a decade in prison for a murder he didn't commit. Kennedy pinned the murder of Martha Moxley on two teenagers from New York City, one black and the other multiracial. Sounds like Donald Trump. He pinned a murder that everybody else pretty much believes Skakel committed. He wanted to pin that on two teenagers, one of them black, one of them multiracial, whom investigators had already investigated and said, nope, they could not have done it. Isn't that what Donald Trump did to the Central Park Five? Hello, somebody? Isn't that what Donald Trump did to the Central Park Five? And here we are. RF Kennedy Jr. has done the same thing. All but take out a full page ad and advocate for their execution. Now, police have already investigated these two teenagers. And yeah, he goes on and wrote a whole book to blame these two children. One black, one multiracial. Okay, moving on. Ghost written by reporter Andrew Goldman and published by Skyhorse Publishing, which also issues Kennedy's anti-vaccine books. Kennedy's books claim to have solved the murder. Quote, I am dead certain they did it, Kennedy told the New York Times. Asked about Kennedy's conclusion, Martha Moxley's mother, Dorothy, said she had never seen the truth so twisted and manipulated in her entire life. And that's a quote. The mother of the murdered girl is asked about Robert F. Kennedy's conclusion about the murder of her daughter. She said she had never seen the truth so twisted and so manipulated in her entire life. Quote, end quote. Kennedy conceded that his claims were controversial. Anytime you do anything controversial, you lose constituents, he told the Times. You lose support because people have opinions. The book, hyped by Alan Dershowitz and Bill O'Reilly. Alan Dershowitz is a part of Donald Trump's orbit. Bill O'Reilly is a part of Fox News orbit. So when we tell you that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is backed by Republicans, yeah, this might add some credence to that. Hold on. I just happen to look up and I see these trolls. So when I see them, I block them. Okay. So that's Alan Dershowitz and Bill O'Reilly. Further buttressed Kennedy's identity as a serial white knight jousting with the prevailing establishment, whether the justice system, corrupt polluters, or the pharmaceutical industry, or later, President Biden, the Democratic National Committee, and his own family. In 1994, Kennedy married Richardson, who had been Kerry Kennedy's best friend. Kerry Kennedy is Robert F. Kennedy's sister. And so, okay, he married his sister's best friend. Since they attended Putney School in Vermont together, she and Bobby had 4 children: Connor, Kira, Aiden, and Finn. In the fall of 1998, the Kennedys hired a 23-year-old woman, Eliza Cooney, as their part-time babysitter. She was a recent college graduate interested in working on environmental causes and had looked after Carrie's and Max's children in Hyannisport that summer. Cooney moved into Bobby and Mary's family home in Mount Kisco, New York, taking care of the kids and assisting Bobby at his environmental law clinic at Pace University during the week. Bobby is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Okay. One night, Cooney attended a meeting in the family kitchen with Kennedy and another young Riverkeeper volunteer. Riverkeeper is his organization, it's his business. Volunteer named Murray Fisher to discuss business when she felt Kennedy's hand moving up and down her leg under the table. I hadn't heard about this. She tried making sense of the incident in her diary, which I have read. In an entry dated November 7th, 1998, she wrote, now this is a source, a direct source, and she provided her diary from 1998 to prove, oh Lord, child, who keeps diaries like that? But I guess if you are diligent in writing in your diary like that, you keep your diaries. But anyway, from everything everybody says about the Kennedys, plus their babysitters, they have me worried. This is the entry she wrote in her diary. Like, I have to watch out, be careful. And the other night in the kitchen with Murray, I could have sworn he was touching my leg and hand. It seemed like he thought I was somebody else or wasn't paying attention. Like he would come to every once in a while and snap out of it, or I would move away. It was like he was on something or really tired or was missing Mary or was testing me. Remember, earlier in the article, the family talked about the brain, the dead brainworm, and the brainworm ate away part of his brain, and part of the issues as a result of that, he would have brain fog, he would have mood swings, right? That goes in line with that. Quote, in the back of my mind, I was hoping it wasn't what it actually was, end quote. So this young girl who was Robert F. Kennedy's babysitter back in the day, she is now 48. She's giving her name. She's provided her diary from 1998 when she wrote this. She's now 48. She was reached out to for comment. Fisher says he worked closely with Cooney and liked her, but wasn't aware of her alleged experiences with Kennedy at the time and feels bad for her. They reached out to Murray Fisher, I guess. Weeks later, she discovered Kennedy standing in her bedroom. Remember, she was a live-in babysitter. She took care of the kids part-time. She worked on environmental cases with Kennedy the other part of the time. So she was a live-in babysitter. Weeks later, she discovered Kennedy standing in her bedroom. She saw that her diary was which chronicled her daily activities and detailed her romantic life with her boyfriend, was open next to her bed. And she was shocked when a shirtless Kennedy, then 45 years old, asked her to rub lotion on his back. Quote, I thought, isn't Mary home? End quote. Doesn't she do this for you? No, girl, he wanted you to do it. But she's young. She doesn't. Yeah, she's young. She did it. She did it reluctantly. Quote, it was totally inappropriate. She says, adding that she stopped recording these experiences in her journal, fearing Kennedy would read them. A few months later, Cooney says she was rifling through the kitchen pantry for lunch after a yoga class, still in her sports bra and leggings, when Kennedy came up behind her, blocked her inside the room, and began groping her, putting his hands on her hips and sliding them up along her rib cage and breast. Quote, my back was to the door of the pantry and he came up behind me, end quote. She says, describing the alleged assault. Quote, I was frozen, shocked, end quote. So, like Trump, he likes to blame crimes on young black and brown kids, even though they've been proven to be innocent. He also is an assaulter of women. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the person you all are down in the chat saying that you're going to vote for. Yeah. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Let me check on my YouTube people. Let me see how they doing over here. Cause I got the article up. Welcome, Rivka. Thank you for subscribing. Lifestyles of the Rich and Dangerous. Yes, Sam. He's also a predator, just as Donald Trump is. Okay, moving on. He was interrupted by a co-worker who entered the kitchen. To announce his presence, the man, according to Cooney, said something like, quote, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Don't do anything you wouldn't want your wife to know about, end quote. Cooney stayed on the job for a few more months, but says the experience damaged her confidence and diverted her from environmental work. At the end of her diary, Cooney wrote a list of things, quote, to leave behind in 1999. Bad men is at the top, end quote. So she left. Hey, Aisha. So she left after he was doing inappropriate things to her legs underneath the table. After she caught him standing in her room reading her diary, asking her to do inappropriate things, and then all out assaulting her in the kitchen. She finally had enough and left. Cooney kept these incidents secret until the Me Too movement in 2017. We all remember the Me Too movement. When she first told her mother, Holly, who was horrified, of course. Was I surprised? Not really. And not because of the Kennedy name as such as knowing that the culture was especially in the world of privilege. Holly Cooney told me, this is the young girl's mother, told me, I remember when we talked about it the first time, she was agonizing over how public she felt she was ready to go. So she's ready to go public. She wants to talk. She wants to tell her story. In the spring of 2023, after Kennedy announced he was running against Joe Biden for the Democratic nomination, she told two close friends and a lawyer, Elizabeth Geddes, who had prosecuted the rapper R. Kelly. Geddes suggested Cooney could still bring a civil suit against Kennedy under the Adult Survivors Act. That's the act that allowed Cassie to come forward and so many other women to come forward to file suit against Diddy and a whole bunch of other men. So she reached out to this attorney, and this attorney said she could file a civil suit against Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but she decided against it. His candidacy for president impelled her to share her story publicly now. In 2010, R.F. Kennedy Jr. began a relationship with actor Cheryl Hines of Curb Your Enthusiasm and separated from Mary Richardson. Richardson had been enthralled by the Kennedys since childhood, and her identity was bound up in the marriage, even as it became an unbearable burden. She fell into alcoholism and depression, according to a new book called Ask Not, The Kennedys and the Women They Destroyed by Maureen Callahan. When Richardson found evidence of one of Kennedy's affairs, she became so hysterical that she'd run out of the house, gotten in her car, backed out of the driveway, and accidentally run over and killed Portia, the family dog. According to Callahan's reporting, Kennedy asked Richardson's therapist to diagnose her as mentally ill, but the therapist who spoke to Callahan for the book declined. So he wanted to have his soon-to-be ex-wife declared mentally ill. So I believe, this is my opinion, the reason why he did that is so if she comes out and tells her story publicly, he can basically say she was once declared mentally ill. You can't believe anything she says. After Kennedy left her, Richardson proposed she live in the guest house while Kennedy and Hines live in the main house, and that she keep the Kennedy name. He declined. Why would you want to do that, lady? He declined and then tried to avoid paying her child support using his brain fog as a medical excuse for alleged financial straits. Richardson, her behavior increasingly erratic, eventually lost custody of the children to Kennedy. The Kennedy family, including Carrie is Robert F. Kennedy's sister, including Carrie, who had once been like a sister to Richardson, began to distance themselves from her because, remember, the family image, the family legacy is more important than anything. On May 16th, Richardson's housekeeper discovered Richardson hanging from the rafters in the barn. After her death, this is Robert F. Kennedy's former wife, who he was leaving for Cheryl Hines, who he tried to have diagnosed as mentally ill because she freaked out when she found a sex diary that proved he was cheating on her. Okay. After her death, a sex diary from 2001 that Kennedy kept leaked to the New York Post. According to reporter Isabel Vincent, the back page listed the names of 24 women Kennedy had been involved with. Baby, he is just like another Donald Trump. He is another Donald Trump. That's why they like him. Including a scorecard. So in this diary, there's a scorecard of how far he got with each woman. Kennedy reportedly described himself as plagued by my lust demons and spoke of being mugged by women who came on to him or responded to his advances. And when you're a star, they let you do it. They let you grab them by the hoo-ha. That's what this is giving. Mugged by women who came onto him or responded to his advances, meaning he was somehow targeted by women with whom he had affairs. He once recorded that he was mugged by 2 women at once. Kennedy told the Post he has no diary from 2001. Kennedy's family and friends weren't surprised, as a former friend of Richardson's recounted to me being the author. Mary says to me, poor Bobby, he's an ex-addict. He's taking medication. It's so hard for him. That's how sweet this woman was. My husband is an ex-addict. My poor husband is sick. So a heroin addiction, conspiracy theorist, brain worm, eating his brain. He's got issues as a result of that. And now he's a sex addict. Riffing on Nora Ephron's famous quote about her ex-husband, Carl Bernstein, he was capable of having sex with a Venetian blind. You know, your blinds in your house. Kennedy's friends would joke, it's safe to say he would sleep with an ottoman. You know, the ottoman that you put your feet up on down in front of your couch. One longtime friend had warned him that he needed to be more discreet. Remember those bad decision makings that they were talking about at the beginning of the article? Listen, I'm not, quote, listen, I'm not being in any way judgmental, but you have to rein it in. Everybody in New York has a story, end quote. That's what one of his friends told him when telling him to be discreet. Kennedy insisted that he'd been faithful to his wife. Remember, at the beginning of the article, they've already established that he's a liar, pathologically. Kennedy insisted that he'd been faithful to his wife and appeared to believe that he was saying, quote, that was the scary part. He really was pathologically involved with that narrative, end quote. The Richardson family has never forgiven Kennedy, privately maintaining that his boorish and insensitive behavior was a factor in Mary's death. Mary is the ex-wife who they found hanging in the rafters of the barn. So they got it in red here that they were looking to possibly bring suit against him for wrongful death, her death. They hired a private investigative firm to explore if they could sue him for wrongful death and psychological torture. The Kennedys blamed Richardson's depression. Carrie remained loyal to Bobby, who had Richardson's remains burned on a Kennedy family plot against the wishes of the Richardsons. So Mary, his ex-wife, her family had to sit idly by while he took her body, her remains, to a family plot and burned her. Did y'all hear what I said? 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 He took the wife's body to a family plot. They didn't say cremation in this article. They said he took the wife's body to a family plot and burned it. This is the man that's running for president as an independent candidate. And you know what I think about? I think about Donald Trump took his ex-wife and buried her on his golf course, wide open for everybody to gawk at, wide open for everybody to stare at her. That's some evil shit. That's some evil, diabolical, psychotic shit. Both of these men are just alike. And her family is pleading. I'm reading a Vanity Fair article. Okay, moving on. I just had to digest that. It's heartbreak. That's heartbreaking. I can't imagine the family, the families. Against this backdrop, the tragic deaths of cousins and brothers, the Michael Skakel case, Richardson's suicide, the leaked sex diary, the new marriage to Hines, Cheryl Hines, Kennedy was beginning to discover the cause that would consume him for the next 20 years. His work at Waterkeeper, the environmental nonprofit dedicated to protecting waterways and drinking water distinct from Riverkeeper, has centered around mercury levels found in migratory fish. When Connor, his first son by Richardson, the woman whose body he burned, suffered from allergies to peanuts and soy, Kennedy went looking for answers and found a suspect, mercury. He told Cooney, the babysitter that he actually assaulted, who later quit, who also worked at Kennedy's environmental project, that Connor's allergies were likely because of the shots he got when he was a baby because they had mercury in them. So, when you have you're a baby, you have these series of shots, right? That you go and you get inoculated from certain diseases, chicken pox and measles, those types of things, right? He's saying his son's allergies to peanuts is as a result of those shots. So I'm guessing this is where he becomes an anti-vaxxer. Let's keep going. Yes, this presidential candidate is an anti-vaxxer. So that means the next pandemic that comes along, and should he be president, what do you think is going to happen? He too is going to tell us to stand in the sunlight and inject bleach. By his own telling, Kennedy met mothers around this time who insisted he read research alleging that autism is caused by mercury in the MMR vaccine. This is when the anti-vax movement really started to take hold. I remember I was on Facebook back then. All of these groups, these anti-vax groups, had thousands of these mothers who were anti-vaxxers. And that has led us to what we're dealing with today. The idea of vaccines causing autism had just entered the mainstream after Andrew Wakefield, a British doctor, published a 4,000-word paper in the medical journal, The Lancet, attempting to link vaccines to autism in children. His 1998 claim simultaneously speculative and sweeping because a cause célèbre in Hollywood circles fanned by actors Jenny McCarthy and Jim Carrey, Oprah Winfrey publicized their claims on her TV show. And this is why so many people do not like Oprah Winfrey. She has done some problematic shit that has contributed to a lot of the conspiracy theories that we are dealing with today. She gave them the platform. She gave them the platform. Look at Dr. Oz. Look at Dr. Phil. There's so much more when it comes to Oprah Winfrey. It was just the kind of cause Kennedy was attracted to, counter to prevailing wisdom, which a huge payoff in heroism and public glory. His friend Jan Weiner, founder and publisher of Rolling Stone, agreed, along with the editors of Salon, to co-publish a story Kennedy wrote about vaccines, which echoed Wakefield's research. It took 5 years for Wakefield's research to be debunked. So for 5 years, this lie permeated amongst the anti-vax community, gave credence to lies for 5 years. Damage had been done. They only know the beginning of the story. The debunked part of the story that came along, they're not interested in that. Wakefield research to be debunked, and the Lancet to retract his paper, which prompted Rolling Stone and Salon to pull Kennedy's story in 2011. So they had to retract the paper, and the nonsense that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was putting out through Rolling Stone and Salon, they had to pull it. Too late. By then, however, the damage had been done, and Kennedy was now linked up with a fellow anti-vax crusader named Del Bigtree, a former TV producer with no scientific background. None of these people really have scientific backgrounds. They're no Dr. Fauci, but they spread this. Bigtree, who had been a producer on a TV show called The Doctors, remember that show? I remember that show. Began cultivating a following through books and TV appearances and held anti-vax rallies in places where skepticism was already strong, like Hasidic Jewish communities. In the next few years, Kennedy and Bigtree will both appear publicly with Wakefield. That's the guy who did that 4,000-page paper that really solidified some of these conspiracy theories. The paper that was later retracted. Yeah, that's him. So they all would appear together, and they published books of unfounded conspiracies and trolling CDC officials as public events. And, they were dogging Anthony Fauci. Mm-hmm. Kennedy was still the highest profile member of his enormous family, feted in Hollywood for his environmental activism. Starting in the late 2000s, he was having regular conversations with Bill Clinton, who revered Kennedy's father, John F. Kennedy. Clinton considered the son of the de facto figurehead of the family and attended events memorializing the anniversary of Kennedy's assassination and the re-christening of the Triborough Bridge as the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge. Clinton viewed him as the family emissary, says a Clinton World insider. So Bill Clinton pretty much validated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. For years, Kennedy's inner circle of friends like Kaplan and Karsh had stoked his lifelong political aspirations, but most of his old allies gave up hope. Kennedy had too many demons, too complicated a past. In 2014, Kennedy married Hines in a wedding attended by a glittering array of friends, including Larry David and Julia Louise Dreyfus, and moved to Los Angeles. The move marked a reinvention of sorts, distancing Kennedy from his East Coast network and perhaps removing some of the built-in guardrails that had tempered his worst impulses. In addition to consulting for companies seeking his environmental seal of approval, he chaired the 501c3 nonprofit Children's Health Defense, which began in 2007 under the name World Mercury Project and unveiled against vaccines and fluoride in water. You know, the fluoride that you get, I believe they're talking about that you get from your dentist. I believe that's what they're talking about. I'm not 100% sure. That's the only fluoride I know. the fluoride that I get from the dentist. But who made yeah, let's keep going. I don't want to get too distracted. Okay. During this period, figures like Alex Jones, the king of conspiracy theory, who has now probably been completely wiped out financially because George has ordered that he sell all of his assets, and that include InfoWars, so that he can pay that $1 billion lawsuit that he owes the parents of Sandy Hook. But during this period, figures like Alex Jones, Glenn Beck, and Donald Trump mainstream conspiracy culture, with Trump seeding his 2016 presidential run by hyping the racist conspiracy theory that Barack Obama had faked his birth certificate and was a secret Muslim born in Kenya. Kennedy, having pushed discredited anti-vaccine views for over a decade, saw an opening. When Trump was elected president in November of 2016, Kennedy secured an audience with him at Trump Tower. Friends warned Kennedy not to take the meeting, concerned he would end up like Mitt Romney, whose attempt to curry favor with Trump over dinner left Romney publicly humiliated. When Kennedy emerged from Trump Tower in 2017, he claimed to the press that Trump had asked him to chair a commission on vaccine safety and scientific integrity. We all know Donald Trump put people in charge of agencies and departments who weren't necessarily qualified, had any experience or education in that field, hence Project 2025. That same day, Donald Trump advisor Hope Hicks said the two talked about autism, but Trump didn't commit to a commission on vaccines. Kennedy's meeting with Trump was the inflection point that broke his relationship with Riverkeeper, the nonprofit for which he was the chief prosecuting attorney and the public face. For years, the board and staff had been engaged in an uncomfortable internal debate about whether a scientific-based group like theirs should be led by a man making anti-scientific claims about vaccines and who, for good measure, opposed eco-friendly wind-powered turbines off Hyannisport and happened to mar his family's ocean views. His allies at other environmental groups like the National Resources Defense Council had already had similar conversations and parted ways with Kennedy over the vaccine issue in 2014. I know that Deshay over on YouTube says the family came out and in support. I know all of that. But a lot of people are still supporting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for president. So I'm here to educate who this man and what this man really is. That's what I do. On Monday morning, he's giving a speech saying, "Do not believe any scientists on vaccines." And on Tuesday, you've got to believe the scientists when it comes to climate change or what we're doing at the river. So he was an environmental attorney for Riverkeeper. He was also the face because he's well known because he's a Kennedy of Riverkeeper. Riverkeeper, what they do is based on facts and science. The person who's the face of their business is a conspiracy theorist and spouting conspiracy theories. So they had a dilemma, for real. They had a real serious dilemma. The Trump meeting spurred a revolt inside the nonprofit, with employees threatening to quit en masse if Kennedy wasn't ousted. In a series of meetings between Kennedy and his board, they agreed to treat Kennedy's exit from Riverkeeper as a resignation and not a firing, though. In fact, he was pressured to leave. So technically he was fired. They allowed him to say he quit. Oh, Deshae, clearly you don't follow me on this channel. Clearly you don't follow me on this channel. Hold on. The live was blocked over on TikTok. Somebody reported the live over on TikTok, and yeah, they banned the live. So we're still rolling over here on YouTube. With each public and private rejection, whether the retraction of the Rolling Stone article or his breakups with environmental groups, Kennedy dug in deeper and deeper, increasing his anti-vaccine work was taking precedent. In 2018, Kennedy involved himself in a largely forgotten vaccine controversy in the American Samoa Islands. A lot of people, I remember this whole controversy. I don't understand why people aren't talking about it. Mehdi Hasan did a whole segment when he had his show on MSNBC. I don't know. I'm gonna dig up that segment of Mehdi Hasan and share it. That year, 2 children died after receiving the MMR vaccine, sparking an island-wide furor, though it was later revealed that 2 nurses made a critical error administering the vaccines, accidentally introducing expired muscle relaxants into the formula. Kennedy's nonprofit took to social media to hype the deaths as evidence of vaccine dangers. So 2 children on these Samoan islands died from receiving the MMR vaccine. Come to find out, the nurses included muscle relaxants with the vaccine that they administered. That is why these children died. But what Robert F. Kennedy did, he started to use these 2 children's deaths as proof that the MMR vaccine is dangerous. Don't give it to your children. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Let's keep going. Under public pressure, the Samoan Prime Minister halted MMR vaccines on the island. So because of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. spewing this lie about the MMR vaccine, or being intellectually dishonest and not telling the whole story, that it wasn't the MMR vaccine, it was the muscle relaxant that was also administered that caused the deaths. He left that part out. Now, the prime minister of this Samoa island stops giving the MMR vaccines. In June of 2019, Kennedy and Hines flew to Samoa, lending celebrity wattage to local anti-vaccine advocates, giving press interviews and taking private meetings with the prime minister. Over the ensuing months, the island was hit by the largest measles outbreak in history. Remember, they stopped giving the vaccine. So now they've got this outbreak that ended up infecting 5,000, close to 6,000 people. And 83 of those people died. Most of those people, children. This is the person that these people are talking about supporting. The outbreak was so lethal, the prime minister declared a state of emergency and ordered mandatory vaccinations, eventually curtailing the spread. Later, one of Kennedy's biggest critics, a pediatrician and member of the FDA's Advisory Committee on Vaccines, Paul Offit, told PBS that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had everything to do with that, and that shows you how disinformation can kill. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In an interview with filmmaker Scott Kennedy, no relation, who made a documentary called Shot in the Arm, which will appear on PBS this fall, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. becomes vividly agitated when confronted with the facts of the Samoa case, insisting that I had nothing to do with people not being vaccinated in Samoa. Remember, at the beginning of the article, we established he's a liar. We established he does not deal in facts. We established that he believes his own hype over that of scientists in the field, facts. He believes his own thought process as fact. Mm-hmm. And now, him being a part of this controversy, going to advocate against vaccines, using the 2 dead children to advocate against vaccines, spreading the lie that they died because of these vaccines, not telling the whole truth about what happened. It led to an outbreak because the prime minister is like, holy shit, even the Kennedys are talking about this. Let's put a halt on vaccines. I don't want anybody else dying. I don't want any more of our children dying. They go over, Kennedy and whoever else was with them, to further solidify with them having these conversations with the prime minister. And then a huge outbreak happens. And now they've got close to 83 children dead. Close to 6,000 people infected with measles. And his response is, I had nothing to do with people not vaccinating in Samoa. I never told anybody not to vaccinate. I've said on many occasions, when these people are going around talking trash about the Democrats, talking trash about Joe Biden, it deters people from voting. And they know it deters people from voting, right? They know. But what they'll come back and say is, I never told anybody not to vote. You don't have to use the words, I never told anybody not to vote. I never told anybody not to vaccinate, for them to take the words that you're spewing, because you're not telling the whole truth. You're being disingenuous in your messaging. You're being dishonest in your messaging. They take part of your message and say, oh, I trust this person because of X, Y, and Z. So they wouldn't lie to me. They wouldn't lead me to astray. Well, I'm not going to vote either, because they think you're not voting because you're talking trash about the Democratic Party and you're talking trash about Joe Biden. You're not talking about all that he's done. You're not talking about all that he plans to do. You lead them to believe that you're not voting. You lead them to believe that Joe Biden is the wrong choice. You don't have to say, don't vote for Joe Biden. Marnie is right. It's a level of manipulation. They know what they're doing. He knows what he did. I never told anybody not to vaccinate. I had nothing to do with people not vaccinating in Samoa. You had private meetings with the prime minister. You're publicly talking about these 2 children and pushing the false lie that they died from this vaccine. You're not telling the whole truth. And y'all know Kennedy is a trusted name. A lot of people aren't going to read for themselves. A lot of people are not going to research from themselves. They trust that you, being in front of the camera, will do that for them. Moving on, he had met with the prime minister to discuss implementing a medical system that would, in Kennedy's own words, measure health outcomes following the natural experiment created by the National Respite from Vaccines. So he talked with the prime minister about implementing a medical system on measuring outcomes following a natural experiment. That's moving away from vaccines. What's the natural experience? Juices and berries? Is that it? Yes, resting by face. I get it. Rest in bee face. I get it. Moving on. In November of 2019, Kennedy sent a letter to the prime minister obtained by Scott Kennedy, remember, no relation, and shared with Vanity Fair, speculating that the measles outbreak might be attributed to the vaccine itself. So on top of that, he sent a letter to the prime minister that this person was able to get his hands on, and he shared that letter with Vanity Fair. And in that letter, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is giving speculation, basically saying, I don't know, but I think your measles outbreak was attributed by the vaccine itself. Clearly caught off guard, Kennedy asked the filmmaker to let him approve the footage of their interview. The director refused. Scott Kennedy has since shown the documentary to Robert F. Kennedy's sister, Rory Kennedy. She declined to comment to Vanity Fair. That tells you what this man has that proves what Robert F. Kennedy did is factual. So they're just not going to talk about it. The year after the Samoa episode, the COVID pandemic began, ultimately killing millions of people, but it was a stroke of political and financial fortune for Kennedy, who found a ripe audience for his anti-vaccine claims, tapping into a newly fertile online world of misinformation. Hence how he got introduced to MAGA. Conspiracy and distrust of pharmaceutical companies on podcasts and social media. High-profile podcasters like Joe Rogan allowed him to spout his conspiracy theories unchecked, and Kennedy built a following among pseudoscientists, a self-styled influencers hawking supplements and alternative medicines under the banner of wellness, aligning with figures like Aubrey Marcus, a podcaster, poet, and self-styled guru of total human optimization, who hosted a fundraiser for Kennedy in Austin last March. The man had met his time. During the next 3 years, Kennedy would push a half dozen books on the dangers of vaccines, co-star in a documentary with Andrew Wakefield. Remember, Wakefield is the guy that wrote the 4,000-page I don't know what it was, medical opinion, and they posted it in that magazine over in Britain that became very popular amongst anti-vax groups over on Facebook. And then the anti-vax movement grew. That's who Wakefield is. Okay, so he Robert F. Kennedy Jr. co-starred in a documentary with Andrew Wakefield, and launched a full-scale assault on Anthony Fauci, disseminating misinformation to an anti-vaccine movement that politicized health measures meant to protect the public from COVID, which led to untold numbers of unvaccinated people dying unnecessarily. Yeah. Consequently, Consequently, money poured into the tax-exempt children's health defense, doubling revenue in 2020 to $6.8 million, which increased Robert F. Kennedy's salary from children's health defense to $510,000 in 2022 from $40,000 in 2016. So, being someone that's out there publicly on social media, pushing anti-vax narratives, it's very profitable for them. Very profitable. There was so many of those multi-level marketing schemes out there that were pushing anti-vax conspiracy theories so that they can sell their juices and berries. And it all leads right on back to people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan. It all leads back to them. No, don't get the vaccine. Don't get the vaccine. Take this hydroxychloroquine. Remember, they were taking horse paste. They were going to their local feed stores and getting that horse paste because it had hydroxychloroquine in it. Remember that? Remember, they were taking Roundup. Remember that? All of this was all of that. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was a part of all of that. And this man is running for president of the United States. He is so much more like Donald Trump in every sense. When Meta shut down his Instagram account after Kennedy disseminated misinformation on vaccines at the height of the COVID pandemic, Kennedy was enraged and sued the Biden administration. Why did he sue the Biden administration? Why didn't he sue Facebook? Anywho, he accused Biden of pressuring Meta, who silenced him. So he's saying his First Amendment rights was affected when Meta shut down his account, and it's because of Joe Biden. This turned the First Amendment into a pillar of his broader crusade and eventual campaign for president. As one family member put it to me, this is what the author of this article is saying. Where am I? Lost my. Put it to me. Blocking access to his social media audience was like taking his stash. Last summer, during an interview with Vanity Fair, Kennedy told me the Biden administration, quote, lost me 800,000 followers, end quote. And the suit is still pending. He hasn't withdrawn that lawsuit. He's still suing Biden. When Kennedy emerged as a candidate for president, his body and face have become transfigured by what he has called a regimen of organic testosterone. Kennedy showed off his usually puffy body in campaign workouts, going shirtless in an infamous push-up video. Quote, I mean, he's unrecognizable, end quote. This is a family member saying this. It's like a body snatching thing, end quote. His campaign also became pumped up, powered by cash infusions from his vice presidential pick, Nicole Shanahan. I guess that's the billionaire who bought that. Yeah, he announced his vice president, Nicole Shanahan. She's a billionaire, I believe. The ex-wife of Google co-founder Sergey Brin, and from Timothy Mellon, an heir to the Mellon banking fortune, who has given $30 million to the super PAC supporting Kennedy, while also giving $50 million to Donald Trump's campaign. So this lady, who is now his vice president, she bought being named vice president. Clearly, she paid $30 million for it, right? And she's also donated to Donald Trump's campaign, $50 million. How's that? How's that sway? It's an alignment of interest that critics suspect is strategic, financing Kennedy's campaign to draw votes from Joe Biden and thereby boosting Donald Trump. Many in Kennedy's family believe that their cousin's pursuit of the presidency has left him vulnerable not only to the draw of his followers and the conspiracies he's employed to attract them, but to influence of enablers in his own circle, including Big Tree, his stalwart fellow anti-vax crusader who now serves as his campaign director of communications and has drawn down $265,000 through a campaign-aligned LLC. His campaign manager is his own daughter-in-law, Amaryllis Fox, a former CIA agent and wife of Bobby III, himself an actor and screenwriter who once ran a website dedicated to fact-checking political statements. The two met at Burning Man. Fox 43 took over for Dennis Kucinich last October and has since been paid $223,000. Fox had no previous experience in campaigns unless you count her acting role as a campaign manager in Fear and Loathing in Aspen, a 2021 film based on Hunter S. Thompson run for sheriff in 1970, written and directed by Bobby III. The role was originally intended for his sister, Kit Kennedy. So these people who are working for him, they have no experience in the field, no experience like that, but they're drawing big checks from the campaign. Why? Because I don't think they really anticipate winning, because their goal is to take votes away from Joe Biden because they're in support of Donald Trump. Those are some big salaries that's being paid out by the Robert F. Kennedy Campaign Fund. Fox published a 2019 memoir detailing her career as an undercover CIA agent, which she publicized before getting agency approval. The book includes a story of Fox meeting with al-Qaeda-linked groups and averting a nuclear bomb detonation. Apple bought the television rights before it was even published. Fox told NBC News that she had altered aspects of her story and created composite characters to protect national security. So it's not real. It's not real. Perhaps the most influential figure in Kennedy's orbit is Jay Carson, who worked as an aide to Bill Clinton when Clinton and Kennedy were friends and neighbors in Westchester County. Disenchanted with politics, Carson moved to Los Angeles and reinvented himself because a producer for House of Cards, becoming a producer for House of Cards and creating the series The Morning Show. After divorcing his wife, producer Sarah Treen, creator of The Affair, he befriended Kennedy in an AA meeting. Remember, Kennedy still goes to his recovery meetings. He's a recovering heroin addict. He was a heroin addict for 14 years. During the pandemic, became a COVID lockdown skeptic. He got remarried to a self-described journey designer in Topanga Canyon, started attending a high-end survivalist school in Utah, whose clients also included LaShawn Murdoch and Drew Barrymore. You know, Drew Barrymore, cool man. You know, she loves everybody. What did she tell Michelle Obama? We all need mothering from you. What? Last January, while Carson had care of his children with Treem, who were 7 and 11 at the time, he brought a flock of lambs home to Topanga, Canada for the kids to befriend and asked them to keep them calm. Then, along with friends from the survivalist school, he slit the throats of the live lambs, hung them upside down, bled them from their necks, skinned them, decapitated them, butchered them, cooked them, and fed them to their guests, including the children, who he told to watch the lambs and keep the lambs calm. This is according to Los Angeles court records. So anybody talking about that this is a lie, this is fake news, that, there are court records to back this up. Carson cut himself so badly during the butchering that he required medical treatment. The children were traumatized, school counselors became involved, and Carson's ex-wife filed for a restraining order that in part bars him from killing animals in front of the children. Carson, in legal rejoinder, said his kids didn't witness the slaughter itself, only the carcass, and tells Vanity Fair, quote, in most places it's neither unusual nor offensive to turn a farm animal raised for food into food, and that his divorce from Treem was painful, end quote. It wouldn't be traumatizing for kids who grew up in that environment. It's a way of life for them. They are used to that. They are grown up around that. It's not shocking to them. To kids who are not raised in that environment, it's devastating to them. They befriended those little lambs. And then you do that in front of them. In May, Carson produced a half-hour campaign movie for Kennedy's super PAC featuring actor Woody Harrelson, which sought to diffuse the perception of Kennedy as a crackpot by asking, quote, what if he's not crazy, end quote. Carson was reportedly paid $500,000 for the film, and Kennedy praised him in the press as having, quote, his finger on the public pulse, end quote. Family crest is inscribed with the Latin phrase "avis la fin," meaning consider the end. It is a call to purpose turn down dire warning. It is a call to propose turn dire warning. It is a call to purpose turned dire warning. I don't understand that sentence. The Kennedy legacy was built on the idealism of John F. Kennedy and brother Bobby, whose assassination made them martyrs for the dream of liberal progress. In the ensuing decades, that dream became frightened with gossip, scandal, tragedy, and infamy, the so-called Kennedy curse, but has remained deeply resonant nonetheless, especially among Democrats. 56 years after the death of Robert F. Kennedy, the stage belongs to Bobby Jr., even as he has morphed into something closer to Donald Trump than anything related to his father or uncle cultivating power like Trump has by sowing distrust and peddling misinformation. Kennedy's personal history is not dissimilar to Trump's, a bottomless well of scandal that over time has immunized people against its real world consequences. The Kennedy name, the fantasy and celebrity of it, is its own shield, blinding people to the fine details of Kennedy's actual beliefs and thereby making him an appealing and easy vessel for discontent with Biden and Trump. As one family member told me, the Kennedy name just swims around in people's heads associated with sailboats and preppy clothes. Kennedy finds himself in a role that is trailer made for the pathologies that his family and friends describe: the white knight, the anti hero, the spoiler, threatening not only what's left of his family legacy, but the democratic enterprise itself. Whereas his ex wife or friends were once collateral damage to his pathologies, now it's the entire nation. All of Bobby's oldest friends, nearly his entire family, and even the living aides to RFK Sr. have said that his candidacy is dangerous and unwise and likely to elect Donald Trump. His cousin said that, Stephen Kennedy Smith, but he won't or can't stop. It's sad. I guess that Bobby just has to go where the followers are. The battle is not over. Another Kennedy relative told me he has warned RFK Jr. that he would become the target of a Democratic machine that would have no choice but to destroy him. Quote, "They've already destroyed me," end quote, Kennedy replied. Quote, "No, they haven't," the relative said. "They haven't come close," end quote. That much is true for now. The question is whether the Kennedy family have the fortitude to break the family oath and level with the public about the brother and cousin they have known for decades. The likelihood, says a person with decades-long personal and professional ties to the Kennedys, is low. Quote, "Because you pull the Bobby thread, the whole tapestry unravels. It's not just Bobby, it's all of them. You pull the Bobby thread, the Kennedy myth all comes apart," end quote. Behind the scenes, some hope Bobby's own children might come to the rescue, according to a family source. Bobby's son, Aiden, 22, son of Mary Richardson, grandson of Bobby Kennedy, signaled that he might try to persuade his father to get out of the race later this year. Quote, "Would you encourage Bobby to get out?" End quote. The friend said he asked Aiden. Quote, "Definitely," was the reply. End quote. Reached for comment, Aiden Kennedy said, quote, "I never said that," end quote. And that is the end of the article. That is the end of the article. As I drink this cold coffee. You're welcome, V. Carter. Thank you for being here. He is not in the Democratic Party. He's running. When he first announced, he was running as a Democrat to try to primary Joe Biden. As the primaries happened and Joe Biden was blowing him out of the water, he saw that he was not going to primary Joe Biden. So he switched to independent. So he is running as an independent, which means he won't even be on the ballot in all states. And if he's on the ballot, he necessarily won't be counted. Some states don't really count or include third-party candidates. Independent is a third party. And if he's not on your ballot in your states and you're thinking about writing him in, a lot of those states don't count write-in candidates. So in essence, you vote for Robert F. Kennedy, it won't be treated like a vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden. In essence, you're throwing your vote away. And that thrown away vote is one vote less for Joe Biden, which means it benefits Donald Trump. I don't care what anybody says who's trying to make themselves feel better by telling themselves that it's not a vote for Donald Trump. If you not voting or voting third party only benefits Donald Trump. And that's all I got. It's time for me to start work. I was focused on the reading. So I only saw one person who became a member of my channel. Thank you for joining. I can't remember the name, and the little thing is gone from up at the top. If you sent me a super chat, thank you. Yes, that's the deep dive into presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I learned some things. I hope you all learned some things. And I'm going to leave you with this. You're free to vote for whoever you want to vote for. You're free to vote for whoever you want to vote for. I want you to know that elections have consequences. So when you get to that voting booth, choose wisely. I encourage people to vote for democracy, which means voting for Joe Biden and voting against Donald Trump. I encourage you to vote for Democrats and against Republicans down the ticket. We have to get all of these MAGA nut jobs out of office. We have to become the majority in the House and in the Senate, and we have to have Joe Biden as president so we can start to try to fix some of the damage that has been done. That's what we have to do. It's make or break in November. The president of the Heritage Foundation did a video. I will be doing a separate video in regards to that, so you can hear him and see him for yourself saying this. He says we are an American revolution. And if the leftists, the Democrats, back down, then it won't be bloody. That's what he said. So if we just give up for fighting for our democracy, it won't be bloody. That's what he said. He also said they are taking their country back as a result of the Supreme Court giving Donald Trump immunity. This is what he came out and said. Because them giving Donald Trump immunity is the essence of Project 2025. Donald Trump having immunity from committing crimes allows him to do anything that he wants, which means implementing Project 2025. I told y'all, I said it on so many occasions. People like, well, the Constitution, he can't do that. No, the things they want to do is against the law. No. I kept saying, nope. The laws that we know now will be completely reimagined, completely revamped. The Constitution, they haven't been following the Constitution all of this time. They've been shredding the Constitution. So yeah, Donald Trump having immunity from committing crimes as that are deemed presidential acts, you must understand that if Donald Trump were to ever get back into office, everything he does will be labeled a presidential act. When he said he can go down on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody in the middle of the street and get away with it, he meant that shit. This has been in the works. This has been the plan. This has been the plan. In 2016, the person who could have ended the plan was Hillary Clinton, and a whole bunch of people were disillusioned by Donald Trump. They were disillusioned, they were manipulated, and they voted for Donald Trump. In essence, that started it. That started the plan. I knew when Donald Trump was voted out of office in 2020 that it was only going to get worse. I knew it. I knew it because the door was open. So, 2024, we got to put a wrench in the plan. We have to knock it off kilter. And then we got to turn around and do it again in 2028. On that note, I love y'all. Y'all have a fantastic day, and I'll see y'all in the next one.